Welcome back to Sledgehammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Now, today I am joined by the amazing team of Well That Effin' Figures, Colin and Joe. Guys, how you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I am super excited to be here. For those of you that didn't get to check it out, Ashley and I were guests on Well That Effin' Figures, and I do have that link down in the description below, as well as the link to all their social media links, their podcast, their YouTube. So make sure you're checking all that out after this video. Now, we can't get to the end of the video until we start the video. So, Joe, I want to start with you. Joe is a huge collector of horror, Star Wars, and toy hunting on YouTube. Now, when we talk about toy hunting and things like that, what exactly is it that you do, Joe?
Well, so I originally started, watching a bunch of guys who go around to like Target, Walmarts and buy, Star Wars figures, Marvel Legends, things like that, NECA. I originally started going after the same type of things. I was collecting wrestling, Star Wars, horror. Over the months that I've been doing this, I kind of like swayed away from doing a whole lot of Target and Walmarts and moved more into like not high end things, but like a little bit higher end things that I felt was a better investment for me rather than to go pay top dollar for something in the Target or Walmart. So toy hunting for me is like any more maybe like do conventions like horror conventions, different cons, different collectible stores in the area, maybe a Target or Walmart or two on the way in case something comes out that I am interested in. But for the most part right now, I've pretty much narrowed my collection down to like Star Wars, Hot Toys, and just horror figures in general or anything horror in general. So that's my two top things right now.
I've got a huge collection of NECA figures right up there, so I definitely know where you're
Nice.
coming from, man. I'm a huge fan as well. Now, Colin, you've always had a passion for movies, especially horror. A huge Predator fan and collector, and I do want to say, yes, the first Predator not only is a horror movie, it's a total slasher film. Just throwing that out there. You do have a YouTube channel, EC Collecting, where you hunt down reviews, give your thoughts on anything from your collection as well. So obviously you're a big Predator fan, which does mean you're a big fan of the horror genre because, yes, that is a horror movie. So when did the collecting part start for you?
Ooh, probably like right around 20 years ago. Like you said, I've always been into movies. Like I'd rather stay home and binge watch movies than do anything else. I don't know. I've just always been like that. Don't get me wrong. I like going out partying and stuff, or back then. But yeah, I started working at Toys R Us part-time. And that's when I started seeing like what toys had become. And like, wow, like it just gave me something else, like an extension of the movies that I loved, and it just took over from there. Now, like, I mean, you got life-size gremlin behind me, so.
Well, and Toys R Us used to be the hub, man. And the cool thing about Toys R Us was, as a kid, you could go there and get your WWE figures. You could get, your Ninja Turtles, and even, as an adult, you could still get that stuff too. But they also did have adult toys there. They had that one little section that would have like your horror figures, your Back to the Future shit, like the dopest things in the world, man. And I remember we used to go to the Toys R Us in our area when it was still around every Friday. And like my son, he would go back and look at his toys, and I'd be over in that back corner. It was always in the back corner of our store, looking at all, like they used to have like the DeLorean, all the Ghostbusters stuff, all the NECA stuff. And it was just so dope that they would get into that type of stuff too. And at this time, The Walking Dead was really hitting it huge. So they would always have like the new Walking Dead busts and things like that in there. So definitely understand where you're coming from there. And Well That Effin' Figures, I've been trying to not say the exact name because YouTube likes to take money away from me when I do that. But, you guys have been partners in doing this. Joe, how did this channel get started and what got you two together?
So me and Colin didn't know each other from the next guy. We still haven't met in person, but back in, I believe, September, we did a mental health show together on a fellow YouTuber's channel. And that day, I even though we were talking about kind of sadder and things, and we're trying to help each other, I kind of got interested in like doing a podcast myself because we were helping out on another one on another channel, and me and Colin would fill in for people when they were not there on the other channel. And I was talking to a friend of ours. I was like, man, I really want to start one of these. And he was like, so does Colin. And I'm like, I asked Colin, I was like, dude, would you be willing to like, let's do a show together? And he said, yeah, man, let's do it. And I said, well, I've been thinking of some names, and I threw a couple out there, and I threw this one out there, and we kind of just agreed because it was kind of like we were going to originally start like talking about like action figures, and I just figured like, hey, well, that effing figures, we're going to talk about toys. And then he came to me and said, well, I don't really want to talk about toys all the time. I was like, funny you said that because I really don't either. Like, let's branch out. I agree. And it just kind of spiraled from there. So we started this in October. October 30th was our first show. There's been little hiccups along the way, but it kind of fits the name of the show. And we've been having a really good time with this. And I couldn't ask for a better partner on this, man, because I think we mesh pretty good, man. So, yeah.
Oh, me and Ashley had a blast working with you guys. And you guys have had a lot of other amazing guests, too. Some of my favorite ladies in the world, the Final Girls, you guys had them.
Yeah,
I'm absolutely infatuated with them. I love those girls. They're all so amazing.
They had so much energy, man. They were fun, yeah.
They are. And they're just the sweetest. I love them to death, man. And to see you guys, I was actually sitting in a Taco Bell. I was eating Taco Bell and just watching like, this is the best day of my life. You know, like watching all my friends together at one time. Like, and that's what this community is all about, is building that friendship.
Appreciate that.
I mean, look at you guys started the podcast together because of the, you brought up something that I've always talked about, and that's mental health. Especially in the horror world, mental health is something that's never been taboo. It's something we've always touched upon. And I love the fact that that's something that brought you two together. And Colin, you guys have been doing this channel for a while now. What do you think the future holds for Well That Effing Figures?
Well, I mean, I was honest, obviously, like, I want as many people to watch, as possible, but we're having fun meeting people and talk, just, sharing our love for this community and everything else. So honestly, if it keeps going the way it's going, and even if we pick up one new watcher a week, that's fine. It's fine with me.
You guys definitely have the charisma and the content to do it. Because like I said, watching you guys, me and Ashley were so proud to be a part of it. And then watching some of our other friends that have come on, it's been really amazing. And you guys, if you haven't checked it out yet, all the links are down here in the description, like I said at the beginning. So make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel. Make sure you're following these gentlemen on social media, because all those links are down here in the description. Now, in order to work in a horror type of environment, horror had to start for you somewhere. So guys, I would like to go back to the past here for a little bit and talk about what got you started in the horror genre, your first horror movie. I started with you last time, Joe, so I'm going to start with you this time, Colin. Colin, your first horror movie was?
The original Stranger Things, or not Stranger Things. When a Stranger Calls. Sorry, I got that on my mind for some reason.
It's so funny because I literally, when I was writing the script, I wrote Stranger Things. Like you can't make this up, man. Like it's so funny the way this world works, man. Like that's incredible.
That effing figures, see.
Yeah, well, that effing figures. Joe, what about you? Your first horror movie was?
The original Friday the 13th. And the reason why I was probably about, I would say maybe 9 years old. My dad, he loved horror, and he had a second job as a security guard at night. Like he worked midnight, and then he would go in the morning to his normal job, and he would watch horror movies while he's sitting there in the bank by himself. And he would tell me about these movies, and he was like, as long as and I educate you about how these movies are made and that they're not real and that you can handle this is something that we can share together. So for me, Friday the 13th, where Pamela, the mother, was the killer, and it kind of shocked me because I had no idea that the mother would do all this. And it just, that movie's always stuck out in my head. I still love it. Ironically enough, it's not my favorite movie of all time horror-wise. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 1974 one, I believe it is 74, is my favorite. But this is a close second, just because it started a whole new slasher type genre. And then you saw that all through the 80s as well. And yeah, so yeah, Friday the 13th for me, man. It was fun.
Still one of those movies that I go back to because I just had so much fun with that film. So we know that who you watched that with for the first time. Colin, do you remember about how old you were and who you watched When a Stranger Calls for the first time with?
Oh, I want to say it was probably around like 8 or 9. I think that's what I was when I was brainstorming, thinking about this beforehand. I think that's what I came up with. I really like that was the first horror movie I ever seen, and then I think like the Scream when Scream hit. That's when I totally immersed myself into horror. But I know we'll get into it, so I'll save it. But yeah,
well, it's funny because like Scream and When a Stranger Calls are so similar. With those, the openings to those movies could be their own short films, and two of the most iconic openings in all of horror history, even to this day. So, Joe, we know Friday the 13th obviously is a very influential film on a lot of filmmakers, on a lot of people in the community. I mean, you look at all the Jason Voorhees tattoos and all that stuff. And I know Jason wasn't a huge part of the first film. He is in the first film. People don't try to correct me. He is in the film.
He definitely is.
But what would you say the scene was that affected you the most from the first Friday the 13th?
It's weird. I think when Jason came out of the water and you realize that he is alive, but you know his mother was having these visions, you know, and she was just going crazy because she, you know, because the camp counselors were ignoring her, you know, the kids and all that while they were doing their thing. And when he came out of that water, I was just like, man, this is going to be. And even at that age, you know, my dad's like, this is not going to be the only movie they're making. You know, like he said, this is going to be something big. And look at it now. I mean, there's so many of them. Not that they're all the greatest, but they did make a whole slew of movies off that first one. So I guess when he popped out of the water, I'm like, this whole thing's coming together. Like this is going to be something big, and now this is going to expand. So yeah,
and it's what again. As much as I was just talking about, you know, the openings to Scream and When a Stranger Calls and how iconic those openings are, that is one of the most iconic endings of all time. You know that, you know, Jason popping out of the water, and you know it's so amazing because what I love about that ending is we're done. We're safe. You know, the bad lady is dead. The violins are swelling. The police are pulling up. It's, you know, the movie's over. You know, we can get up. You know, let's go. Boom! Here comes Jason out of the water. You know, and it's just like one of the best, not only one of the best endings of all time, but if you've never seen the movie and you don't know it's coming, one of the best jump scares ever, man.
Yeah,
like I said, the music is so sweet. And what's more safe in 1980 than seeing the police show up at your door? You're there. You already cut the bad lady's head off. You know, you're safe. You're in the clear. You made it tonight at Camp Blood, man. You've made it. Crazy Ralph was wrong. You've made it here. You're making it out. Bam, little boy in the water. Ari Lehman playing Jason Voorhees for the first time and grabbing her down. Fantastic ending and great jump scare. Now,
and right there it tells you like here is the cliffhanger, because now you know something else is coming. Right. And now you got to wait.
What better way to fish for a sequel? Like, hey, you see how that ended, right? You're throwing that out there.
Yeah.
So what about you, Colin? What scene was it from When a Stranger Calls that affected you the most?
Ooh, easy one. It's okay, so the whole time she's getting these phone calls, you know, and what you're wondering what's going on, and when she gets that phone call and they're like,
"We've traced the call. It's coming from inside the house. A squad car's on the way over there right now."
That feeling that went through my body, that's what sucked me in. I mean, there's nothing else like it. I don't know. You know, everybody that watches horror knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's it right there.
And I'm gonna pull, you know, a WWE line out of you. I mean, that has been replicated, but never duplicated, man. Like they've tried so hard to redo that. I mean, even Black Christmas. I love the film, but same thing. You know, the calls are coming from in the house. What a scary concept, you know, especially back then, because back then we don't have, you know, I don't know if we had cordless phones, let alone cell phones and caller ID and all that shit. So you get that call. the calls are coming from inside the house. Well, fuck them kids. They're dead. I'm out of here. So like definitely one of those moments where your heart is stopped.
And that's the other thing is knowing that the kids are upstairs too. And you're like, oh man,
And knowing that like if they cut your phone line, now you don't have any contact with the outside world too. You're screwed. There's no calling the cops. There's no cell phone. Yeah, like you said.
You're sending notes on pigeon feed at that point.
Right. Exactly.
And it's crazy too, is like you don't see a bad guy that whole first half of that movie, it's all phone call. Like, I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
And this is right at the boom of, teenagers going out and babysitting to earn extra money. They capitalized at the right moment for this film. And that's something that intelligence, they knew what can we do? Let's make a crazy killer that's calling people while he's inside their own house and tormenting teenage girls. And it's like, oh shit, I just got my first babysitting job and that's out the fucking window now. I'm not doing this shit. So, again, a fantastic movie with a fantastic plot all the way through. Now, Joe, we're talking about Friday the 13th with you. Obviously, this movie is not lull for the kills. There are a lot of kills throughout the first Friday the 13th movie. Some great, some not so much. But what kill would you say, Joe, it was that affected you the most from Friday the 13th?
I would say, if I remember correctly, because it's been a while since I've seen it, but I think I think it's in the first one where she stabs him through the bed while they're having sex, and I'm like, like this. They were hunting out underneath the bed.
All I'm saying is, if you're gonna hide under my bed and kill me while I'm having sex, you better have good timing, because it ain't lasting long.
You got 30 seconds to make this happen, lady. Yeah.
Right. And that counts the undressing and crying and getting dressed again. So, Colin, I do want to bounce back to When a Stranger Calls. Obviously, the film was so great and so original. They decided that it needed a remake. It needed the Hollywood treatment here about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe. Did you see the When a Stranger Calls remake? And if so, were you a fan of it?
I did see it. To me, I always find like good in everything. I try to. And I guess I would say like it's one of those like it's entertaining, I won't say it's as good as the original. I mean,
sure.
I didn't get that feeling like the original one. I don't know, maybe it's because of the original and you already kind of know everything. So, but it wasn't horrible. I wouldn't say it was horrible.
See, and I'm going to be completely honest. I've never seen it, and it's not because I'm anti-remake or I don't want to see it. I've just never gotten around to it. It's never been in a place where I've been able to see it. I'm going to eventually, guys. I promise. Eventually, I will watch this remake, but I just haven't had the opportunity yet. It hasn't presented itself to me. So I do want to see it because I'm with you. I want to be entertained when I watch a movie. I don't go into a movie looking to be pissed off. I'm not going into a movie like this is going to piss me off because of this, or I'm mad because of this. I want you to entertain me. I'm going to give you every single opportunity to entertain me because that's what I want. I want to have a good time watching a film. So I want to watch it, just haven't had the chance. Now, When a Stranger Calls is a one-off film with a remake. I think they had a When a Stranger Calls Back or something. I don't know. I've never seen that either.
There is something like that. I'd never seen that one though. When I own both the original and the remake, and I've watched the remake over again, but I usually pick the original over.
Right. I still got to check it out though, because like I said, the original one is so influential and so powerful. I still got to watch it.
Yeah.
But Friday the 13th, while When a Stranger Calls isn't necessarily a franchise, Friday the 13th is a big franchise with 12 films. Now, the first Friday the 13th was your first horror film, Joe. But in the Friday the 13th franchise, what would you say your favorite film is?
I think part 2, because you get the introduction to Jason, and he doesn't have the hockey mask yet. He doesn't find that till later on in 2, or actually 3, maybe 4. Is it 3? Yeah. But he wears that that sack on his head, and he's kind of has the overalls, and there's nothing particularly fancy about what he's wearing. It's not like something that's going to stick out, for for Hollywood at all. It's just him going around killing everybody in his path that comes to Camp Crystal Lake. and that's where you get the introduction for Jason. And I think part 2, although part 1 was great because it was the mother avenging the child's supposed death
Mhm.
in her mind, but I think part 2, when he gets introduced and you just start seeing him going around just taking care of everybody, you're finally starting to see, like, all right, so now he comes out of the water in part 1, he's introduced, he's doing all this damage. This is the beginning of something, in my mind, special, because it's gonna be a long franchise at that point, and it was.
And it is,
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see where we go from here with the
Mhm.
franchise, because I know that they have the rights sold. I know that they're going to be doing the TV show Crystal Lake, which I'm very excited about. They are doing a
Me too.
reboot of the first film. And I've always said since the beginning of time, if you're going to reboot the first film, Mrs. Voorhees needs to be played by Kathy Bates or
Yes,
Tony
I was just
Collette.
thinking that.
Like Kathy Bates as Mrs. Voorhees, all you got to do is mix Misery with the Water Boy, and there's your Mrs. Voorhees right there, man. Or Tony
Yep.
Collette, just because she's a fucking goddess on earth, man. I love Tony Collette. She can't do any wrong to me. So, now, Joe, you're going to get to cheat here a little bit. Usually I bounce the questions back and forth, but I'm going to ask you guys the same question here now. And like I said, Joe, you're going to get to cheat because, Colin, you're the one that's got to answer first. We've talked about your first horror movie and what your first horror movie means to you. But now, as always, my little buddy Ghostface is here, and he has a question for you. What's your favorite scary movie, Colin? What is your favorite horror movie of all time?
Because I was honestly, and people might laugh, but I love the Scream movies just because I don't know. It might be because it's similar to When a Stranger Calls, but also because like that came out at like the perfect time, like my age, and I don't know. That's what got me like really going into horror, and I don't know. It's been a big part of my growing up, and I got to stay loyal to it.
Dude, and I'm not bashing you for it. I love Scream. I think without Scream, the horror genre would not be what it is today. Whether you love Scream or you hate Scream, you cannot deny the impact that Scream
And
had in the
I love
horror genre.
Ghostface. I love the mask. I just everything about it. I love
You have the same you have the same killer in every movie, but it's a different killer in every movie. That's what I love about it.
And you're like trying the whole movie. You're trying to figure out who the killer could be, and I don't know. I love that. I love it. I don't know. And it's got it's the realism to it. Like this could really happen. That's what I like about movies. That's why I like When a Stranger Calls so much. It's real. That could fucking happen. It's not a guy that's been killed 15 times over and over again. Even though I love those movies, don't get me wrong. It's that realism. I don't know.
You definitely get taken out of the horror element when it's fantastical. When you know that there's a lot of fantasy to it, it definitely takes the horror out of it. So I definitely understand what you're saying with that. And I know your answer, Joe, but Ghostface might not, because he was hiding under my script earlier, so he might not have heard you. What's your favorite scary movie, Joe?
The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for sure.
Dude, I as much as I argue that the Terminator and the Predator are slasher films, that's how much I argue that the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not a slasher. I do not consider that movie a slasher film. I consider it an art film with murder, man, because they were just chilling at their house. They're like, hey, we're going to sit here and eat shit. And these people are like, hey, we're coming in. No, you're not. Stand my ground. You're dead now. And like you feel so sorry for Leatherface, like that scene where he's sitting there in the corner and he's just like rocking and licking his lips, and he's simple, and he's got his brothers that are always there egging him on, and I fucking adore that movie, man. Like that is such a fantastic film.
Yeah, and like years later when the Saw movies came out, Saw 1 almost stole that from Texas Chainsaw Massacre as my favorite because, and it didn't, but it's a close second for me because it was just unique. Like this shit can happen, like these guys were locked in that room, and then the guy in the middle of the floor was the person the whole time screwing with them. And it was just unique. And I love the whole Saw series, and it almost stole my number 1 for me, but I had to stay true to Texas Chainsaw and Leatherface, and the close second is Saw, definitely, though. It came close.
It's funny because I'm a huge fan of the third Saw film.
Mhm,
I think the third Saw film is fucking brilliant, and
mhm.
a lot of people are like, "Wait, what about Jeff?" And a lot of people quote my buddy Dead Meat James, slow ass
Mhm.
motherfucking Jeff. But if you ask me, Jeff's moving a little too fast, man. Because if that was my kid that got killed, I wouldn't even piss on that lady that was frozen to
Mhm.
thaw her out. Get fucked. I'm going slower than Jeff. I'll tell you that. You see
Right.
my ass go through there with a walker. Like, I ain't helping nobody. Fuck y'all. My kid's dead. I don't give a shit
Yeah.
about y'all. So and I just love that movie. I think that one has the best twist out of all of them.
Mhm.
I think that the first one had the most original, but I wasn't looking for a twist in the original. When I first seen it, I'm telling you guys, like the two best films I've ever seen in the theater. One was Saw. I saw it opening night. And I never thought that moment could be topped when Jigsaw stood up in the middle of the room. The way
Mhm.
the air left that theater, I never thought that could be topped until Ashley and I got screener tickets to go see Hereditary.
Mhm.
And we saw that opening night unspoiled. When the scene happened in Hereditary, the whole theater literally went, and it was just like, I have little emo goosebumps right now, just talking about that moment, man. Like, it was just like incredible. So that's what I love about horror is you can think. I've been proven wrong recently. I said, and like I said, I can admit when I'm wrong because it doesn't happen very often, so it doesn't bother me to admit it. But I said there would never be another film in theaters like The Exorcist that would have people screaming and crying and puking and passing out. And then Terrifier 2 comes along, and it does exactly what I said would never ever happen again.
Mhm.
And kudos to Damien Leone, David Howard Thornton,
Yep.
everybody involved with that, Amelie McLean,
Yep.
all these amazing people that just made that happen. And holy shit, you guys, horror rules the world. And Terrifier 2, Skinamarink, these low budget films, Scream 6, look what that just did in theaters.
Mhm.
Horror rules the world. Thank you, horror gods, for being so kind to us in the last couple of moons. So,
Right.
gentlemen, I've had an amazing time talking to you about your first horror movies, your favorite horror movies. But before I let you go, we always go back to the same question. I'll start with you this time, Joe. We're going to bounce back to Friday the 13th. And what we're going to do is rank this on a skull count. Now, we're not going to rank it on acting, production, score, direction, nothing like that. What we're doing here, Joe, is strictly ranking Friday the 13th on how much it affected you on your first viewing. So, 0 skulls being not effective, 5 being extremely effective. You can use half and quarter skulls anywhere in the middle. Joe, what would your ranking of Friday the 13th be?
I got to give it a 5 for me because of the fact that um, it was something I got to share with my father.
Mm-hmm.
Me and him we were always best friends. Like no matter anything, he always had my back. All through life. And thinking back, some of the movies we watched together, and that being one of the ones where he was like, "Now I'm going to let you watch this, but you got to realize,
Mm-hmm.
this is not reality." And trying to teach me the right way to watch these kind of movies. Just the mere fact that he trusted me enough to watch this movie.
Right.
It just brings back a nostalgia point for me, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. That's why I'm glad it's my favorite movie of all, my first movie of all time, my first horror movie, and I'm glad I got to watch it with him, to be honest. So, yeah. With that being said, yeah, no, 5 for sure. Yep.
And it's amazing because, like, I, in my opinion, there's been one perfect movie ever, and
Mhm.
that's Pee-wee's Big Adventure. I think that movie's fucking perfect. Like, that movie is,
Well,
it's
Twisted
comedy
Sister
gold.
was in it. Yeah.
Dude, it's yeah, Twisted Sister's in it. Like, it's a brilliant film, man. I think that's literally a perfect movie. But like when it comes to horror, I've never given anything a perfect rating. Psycho's
Mhm.
extremely close. I think the ending of Psycho is
Mhm.
garbage.
Mhm.
Same thing with Nightmare on Elm Street. I think Nightmare on Elm Street is so good, but that ending is
Mhm.
so bad with the blow up doll mom and the Freddy car.
Mhm.
But there's plenty of movies that have affected me up to a 5.
Yeah.
The Dark and the Wicked recently, I think, is a 5-star for how it affected me.
Yeah.
You go back to House from 1986, which was my first horror film. Like that movie will always be super special to me. So,
Mhm.
what about you, Colin? When a Stranger Calls, how it affected you? 0 skulls, not effective. 5, extremely effective.
I'm not gonna go perfect, but I'm gonna go 4.5. because I mean, like I said before, that feeling that you get in your body, and then you're questioning if there's someone in your house now. And to this day, if I hear something upstairs, I'm thinking of, someone's in the room.
Yeah.
I don't know. And being the first movie I saw as like a real horror movie.
Yeah.
Right.
And it is one of those movies that, like you said, it's real life horror. It's something that could really happen. And those two, like, I agree with you. We were talking before we went live, guys, about real life horror and how I'm not into it. I don't like it. I'm not going to watch footage of a school shooting. I'm not going to watch footage of a shooter getting taken down. Those things are not what I'm about. I'm not going to watch a video of a kid going into the suicide forest and filming a bunch of dead bodies hanging. That's real life. And to me, don't lump that in with horror. That's like the people that lump in like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer. Like, don't worship those guys. They're they kill people, man.
I always feel weird when I see like the action figures of them and stuff. I'm just like, no, dude.
That's real.
Yeah.
Oh, you like Freddy Krueger? Guess how many people Freddy Krueger killed in real life? God damn it! This isn't rocket science. Like,
that's where you got to have the you got to have the education to know like where to separate it at, and that's what I was most thankful for, and that's why I gave the 5. Not that the movie was a 5 by any means; it was probably 3, 4. But the circumstances around it and how I got to watch it and who I got to watch it with, that's what brought it up to a 5.
Sure.
And and you gotta be educated when you watch these things. You like you said, you don't want to watch those real life type things because that's not what you want to see as a horror fan. You want to see entertainment. So
yes, watching people die in real life is not entertaining to me.
No,
it's terrible. It's sad. It's just, that's not what I'm about. And it blows people's minds when I tell them that. I'm like, dude, people send me videos of that stuff. Like, dude, check this out. I'm like, I'm not watching this. Why would you send this to me? Like, you love horror. I love, fucking practical effects, man. I don't want to see someone die.
Yeah, and I think that's where
body, man.
I think people get that impression when I think people get that impression when you like horror that you're a sicko that likes that type of stuff. But no, there's a separation there. You don't want that type of stuff. You want the entertainment value of a horror movie, not a school shooting or not Jeffrey Dahmer type killings or whatever. So
not into it, man.
Bad connotation because of that, I think.
It's funny because even with horror movies, man, like I'm not Ashley, huge gore person. The gorier, the better. I'm like, can we put a little bit of a love story in this movie, please? I would like to see someone fall in love. Like that's me. Like I'm the softie of our relationship.
Man, I call E.T. a horror movie.
Oh, dude, listen, because that's a fight I've had. Like to me, horror is easily the hardest genre to lock down and say this is a horror movie. Like that, it's hard. What has to have murder? The Lion King has murder. That's not a horror movie. It's got to have jump scares. Pee-wee's Big Adventure has one of the best jump scares of all time with Large Marge. I don't consider it a horror movie, but there's movies that I consider horror that like people would never, like The Truman Show, that Jim Carrey movie. That movie probably scared me and fucked my life up more than any horror movie, man. After watching that movie, I had the worst paranoia I've ever had in my entire life. And then you got movies like The Day After Tomorrow. I think that movie's fucking terrifying. A lot of people consider that an action thriller. That's horror as hell to me. Like I'm scared shitless of that movie. Right. So I've always said that horror is what you make it. I know a lot of people that consider The Wizard of Oz a horror movie. I can't argue that. The Wicked Witch is terrifying. The Munchkins are terrifying. You have those monkeys, those flying monkeys that like, oh man.
Yeah.
I can't think. I'll be hard pressed to find a scene in my life that affected me and scared me more than the tunnel scene in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. That used to give me nightmares as a kid, man.
Oh, what just the scoop?
Oh man, when it's spinning, we keep spinning. Like, oh my god!
When he goes through the tube because he ate the chocolate. Is that what you're talking about?
No, when they're on the boat and they're going through the tunnel. The colors are changing, and Gene Wilder's singing that song, and it's just focused. Like, oh, dude,
you never know where you are going.
Yes, dude, that scared me. Dude, as a kid, we'd watch. That was one of my mom's favorite movies, man. And as a kid, I would literally hide under the blankets at that part. That part would scare me. And then movies like The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, Single White Female, Flowers in the Attic. Those are total horror movies to me, man. Like those movies scare me like bad as a kid. So it's all about what you make it. What horror is. I know a guy that watched A Nightmare on Elm Street for the very first time when we were kids. After that, he never slept with sheets on his bed again. After the rod scene, like where the sheet strangled him, he would not sleep with sheets on his bed. Like he was terrified to have sheets on his bed. So like horror affects people in different ways. Like some people like me, they watch horror for the first time and it's like doing drugs, man. Like after that, you're chasing that dragon. Like, you got any more of those jump scares, bro? I need them. You know, you're constantly trying to get that back. And then
That's
other people
fun.
watch horror movies and don't sleep with sheets on their bed anymore. Like, and that's what I love about horror. It's not a shared experience, man. Everybody has their own experience with it, and we just come together and share it with each other because the community is so beautiful. So,
Mhm.
speaking of a beautiful community, I said it at the beginning, but now, guys, we're at the end of the third act. The credits are about to roll and the curtain's about to drop. But before that happens, you can join their community by clicking the links down in the description, subbing to them on YouTube, following them on social media, and becoming a part of their family as well. So please make sure you're doing that. Gentlemen, please don't go anywhere. I got a couple more questions for you. Everybody else, if you haven't already, please make sure you like and subscribe. It does help the channel more than you could ever imagine. And until next time, keep talking horror. Stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.